Hi, good morning, everyone. We've had a few technical issues in our east of the UK office, so I'll be taking over from this now. I'd like to introduce our panel. We've got a great lineup of speakers here. I'm really pleased to have everyone from some of the leading vendors in the marketplace. So maybe do a quick introduction around the table, and just do a kind of quick intro who you are and kind of what your focus on this area is. So Sunny, could we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sunny Dami. I'm Senior Director of Product Marketing at Ring Central. And Ring Central are very heavily focused on the UCaaS and CCaaS market, and as such, are one of the leaders in this space.
Great. And to Mikkel, please.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Michel van Heiningen. I work at Cisco, part of the worldwide sales organization responsible for the go-to-market in EMEA market for the collaboration solutions.
Fantastic. Jeremy.
Morning, Dom. Jeremy Keith. I'm the CEO for Nuvius UC, a specialist distributor in the unified comm space across Europe.
Perfect. And Mike, finally.
Good morning, Mike Wilkinson. I look after the UC product portfolio at Metaswitch, who was recently acquired by Microsoft in July of this year.
Fantastic. So, as we can hear, we've got kind of a great range of speakers here, really great insights from all of them here, hopefully coming up as well. So maybe we could start with the first question. We've obviously been hearing a lot around the importance of collaboration, home working, and security. In your opinion, what are some of the enterprise trends that service providers can't ignore? Michelle, could we start with you on that?
Yeah, well, 2020 has made clear that organizations have to redefine business resiliency. And I think for service providers to thrive in this changing future, we need to do this by reimagining and redesigning the workforce and the workplaces in the future for the future of work. And overall, we see three business trends. One is the secure remote workforce, because we see that the change creates dependency on the collaboration technology, both on software and hardware actually, because the various use types, they require solutions to fit to more than one purpose actually. And secondly, we see the need for a trusted workplace actually. Employees are worried about returning to the office and have concerns about touching shared and office devices, social distancing and cleanliness. And we think that collaboration technology can play an important role in making the workplace actually safer and less frustrating. I think thirdly, probably the most important piece for the service provider is the end-to-end management of it. I think that the opportunity for the service provider is all about streamlining the administrative experience and manage it as one service. And to deliver a real managed enterprise solution, you should be able to root cause any problem and even proactively prevent it from breaking down.
Fantastic. Jeremy, as a distributor in this space, is that something you'd see as well, demand coming through from there, or any other areas that are interesting?
Yeah, it's an interesting time, Dom, I think. As you and I know, we met in my days at Polycom, and I've spent a few months out of the industry working for quite a large corporate with 110,000 employees. And it's quite interesting for me how a company like that was ill-equipped for its users to work from home. I think a lot of users got their desks shipped to home, but if you look at an office environment today, many people sat at their desks don't have the ability to communicate using video or even proper audio, right? You go to a meeting room. And like I said, my starting experience was a laptop that arrived to my home and 2 screens, and that was it. And fortunately enough, I've got a background in the industry, so I could get an external camera and I could get a microphone and you could get a headset. And I think, what we're starting to see in the marketplace, firstly, headsets has just outstripped everything at the minute. And I think if you're a headset vendor out there, you're a Poly, you're an EPOS, you're a Jabra, you've got supplies outstripping demand. Mm-hmm. Sorry, demand is outstripping supply, the other way around, out there in the marketplace today. And I think people have been caught by that. But the other thing, and the huge opportunity at the moment for the service provider community, is to work with their customers and equip their clients with the right technology to work from home. Secondly, they're going to have the right technology to equip people as they start to come back to the office. And I know that's not going to be the same as it was before, and we'll see that. But I think the other thing is choice. Many people have different choice now, and I think it's interesting for me when you have ministers standing in TV saying, "I'm going to go on a Zoom call," and I always challenge people. I said, "Really, is it always a Zoom call?" And I think Sonny and Michael will say it's not, and that's true, because if you look at the stats from all the vendors, they've all seen an upturn in licensing and people acquiring licensing or subscribing for licensing. So there's a massive shift in the marketplace that we're seeing for OPEX type models, rental type models, which we see is a challenge for us as a distributor, and we've found a way of addressing that. But no, I think it's a big challenge for them, but a massive opportunity in the marketplace.
Agreed on that point there. Yeah, Sonny, where do you see this as well from an enterprise trend perspective across Europe?
So firstly, yeah, I agree with Jeremy. There definitely are other video opportunities out there, but we have seen a huge amount of growth across all of our channels, with video and messaging being the highest one. So I think out of all of this, the biggest enterprise trend is I think, without a shadow of a doubt, the increase of video. But I think it's more than just enabling video and that's it, and we're good to go. I think it's being able to actually allow true mobility. So I think Jeremy put it very clearly of you got sent a laptop and a couple of screens and that's it, you're set up for working from home. But actually working from home during a pandemic isn't the ideal situation to be in, because people were homeschooling, there were multiple people working together. So we don't actually see it as the future being work from home. It's more work from anywhere. And I think Michelle's point was very correct as well, in terms of people don't want to go back to the office as much as they were before. There are camps that will want to go, but the offices we were in can't host as many people as previously due to social distancing. In a meeting room that previously held 20 people, you can potentially get 3 or 4 in there now. So it is a very different way of working, and I think the work from anywhere is the approach that will come out. I think security, as you mentioned, is imperative, but security goes over and above encryption and certifications. I think that's a given, and every vendor and every service provider will have their checklist of the right encryptions and certifications they need. But over and above that, when your users are at home or in their home office or remote office, the security is more granular, and it's about how they interact. So on your messaging platform, understanding and identifying people who are outside of the organization. Are there flags up to show that you're not sharing confidential information in your groups with external parties? In video meetings, we've all seen some of the news and reports of people jumping in. So do you have password protected meetings? Do you have waiting rooms? I think those are the security features that enterprises will start to prioritize and make sure are included, and service providers will have a requirement to make sure they are talking about them and enabling them across their platforms.
Yeah, no, that makes sense there. Any last thoughts on that, Mike, from a Meta Microsoft perspective?
Yeah, I'll provide some sort of perspectives from when the pandemic hit. So at the time, I was actually on the executive committee of a mid-market company, and sitting around the table, we had 1,000 employees scattered around the world, and we had a new persona type, which I called displaced worker. So that was somebody who normally came into the office, was probably an R&D engineer. We had 300 of those who immediately, in the space of probably 3 or 4 days, we had to move home and work from home effectively, which caused a huge amount of disruption to the systems. And we suddenly started seeing what the real value of cloud was, because we couldn't put people into our own data centers. All right. So all of a sudden, being able to manage your infrastructure purely from home became vitally important. And as things sort of went on, we moved on to a sort of war footing, which most businesses did in sort of March, April. And as a result of that, you started learning things. So we learned how to work from home effectively. You know, we shipped out better handsets, better quality for the audio, and so on. And as a result of that, we started thinking, well, what can we do differently? And I remember having a conversation with the CFO going, why are we paying for all of these really expensive offices now? Right. And so the business started looking at it and going, okay, so we're paying 5 million a year on rent around the world. We seem to be operating pretty effectively from home. So therefore, going forward, we're going to start looking at our office estate and managing that far more effectively. Okay, so as a result of that sort of learning process, the business went, we can save money now. We see our way. We probably wouldn't have done that before. And as a result, so we said, okay, we'll start changing our patterns of behavior. Another example, I was actually talking to a contact center agent of a large company in the UK. And they, like many contact center solutions, they went from having an office density which was probably close to battery farming to something which, you know, is highly distributed, and they've moved a lot of workers outside the business, and they've moved to far more digital journeys. So in that instance, they had, you know, if you phoned into the contact center, you go through a process where ultimately, didn't matter what you do, you would get pushed back to an SMS pushing you to a website to then try and help yourself. And then you go back into the contact center. And so what was happening was that they were then looking at the behaviors and whether or not they were still hitting their CSAT capabilities to say, okay, that worked, and therefore we'll bring it back into our standard workflows going forward. So what's happened is businesses have gone through a very, very accelerated learning process, which, if the pandemic wasn't there, would never have occurred. And now you're going to see a consolidation phase where we'll go, okay, we're going to do that one, that one, that one, and that one properly. And at the same time, you know, a lot of risks were taken in March and April. So pushing, in the case of, you know, the company I was in, 300, 400, 500 people into home working increased our attack surface significantly. And so what we did after that was saying, okay, we need to improve our security perimeter significantly compared to where it was. So you're going to see consolidation around workflows, which were effective. And then secondly, you're going to see the rest of the IT capability catch up with that going forward, things like security being one example.
Yeah, I think, well, out of our enterprise research, we did a load of interviews with some of the large enterprises, and there's one which had, I think, two floors in the World Trade Center in New York, the new one. And what they had done throughout this was work out where their workers were based and equidistant from there, and start setting up satellite offices and shutting down their main offices, as they thought that's much more valuable to us than having local offices rather than one main one that everyone has to turn up to. Which was a really interesting trend seeing coming through there. So we talked a lot around there. What are the key technology trends? We touched a little bit on contact center and chatbots coming through there. Are there any other technologies that we see emerging to really solve some of these problems? Sonny, what's your perspective on that?
Yes, I think on contact center is a really interesting one, because we've as a market been very heavily reliant on voice contact centers for a very long time, and as you mentioned, chatbots and email have sort of come in and been there or thereabouts. I think what the pandemic has shown, and then moving forward, what we are really seeing is a bigger drive to a true omni-channel contact center environment where digital is leveraged a lot more. I know as soon as the sort of pandemic hit, we had both customers and also from my personal experiences of call centers were flooded with calls and emails, and you got the standard message of it's going to take us sort of 5 to 7 days to get back to you, and digital really takes that away from being a pinch point, with agents being able to manage multiple digital interactions at the same time. So we're definitely seeing that as a strong trend of the acceleration of omnichannel. I think omnichannel was always there and it was always talked about as a future position, but we've just seen a strong acceleration of that, and providing those strong digital capabilities is now on the agenda of a lot of contact centers moving forward. The other piece we've seen, as I mentioned earlier, is video being included a little bit more. So especially as retail is probably a vertical that's been hit most significantly, but changing that from the high street to a pure e-commerce play, we're seeing a lot more with sort of video support from retail agents. So rather than going out into store and speaking to somebody face to face, you can request video chats directly from many retail sites now, and we're seeing that as another, specifically within retail, as another technology trend in the contact center space, which has been rather interesting. I think you're on mute, Dom.
Be muting myself there. Are there any other feedback that we can hear from the speakers there? Maybe Mikhail, do you have any viewpoints on that as well in terms of new technologies that are emerging from Cisco perspective?
Yeah, I think to refer to Mike's point earlier, I think you need to look at personas and also the quality of the experience. I think it will really be a make or break actually factor in the employee success. So poor experience really cannot only impact productivity, but also the increase the risk of employees being unable to make the transition. Also, not only going back, but also for remote work environment. So personas and user experience, that's really important in our experience. Secondly, I think it's also about selecting the right solutions, looking at, let's say, the capabilities to offer secure implementation, but also looking at the requirements for the coming 3 to 5 years. You need to be ready for that piece as well. And we still see a big part of the customers require both on-prem and also, let's say, cloud services, or probably also in a mixed environment at first. So that it needs to be a secure cloud-based, but not cloud-only solution, and easy to implement, use, and maintain. And thirdly, actually, is the security. It's not only about encryption, data protection. It's also about transparency and compliancy. I think the security, it has always been a core requirement for any enterprise implementation. But it is now to the point actually that service providers needs to be trusted suppliers and part of the enterprise ecosystem.
I think that trusted supplier piece is certainly one of the most important things there, and we're seeing more and more around how do we become that trusted piece there. I think that kind of leads on to my next question around the changing in channel and how the channel are buying these new technologies and deploying these new technologies. We're obviously seeing a huge change in the route to market happening. Jeremy, from your point of view, how do you see the role of the service provider changing in terms of, are they a channel? Are they, what's that role change there?
I think in the UC space, the service provider became very important a couple of years ago, really, in terms as it changed its model to look at, the ITSP model that was out in the marketplace that just grew, especially in that SME market. And the service providers started to pick up that you had the smaller guys eating into their lunch, right? And I think what we've now seen is the service providers really stand up and actually acquire some of the smaller, specific niche players in the marketplace to help them develop markets. They've also now seen that they need to provide more solutions to their customers, whereas you can't just go. You just can't go to a market now and say, how much bandwidth do you want? What do you want on the endpoint? I think they're offering a complete managed offering, and security has been talked about a lot today. And security is key to this because the choice out there, and it must be an absolute nightmare if you're a CIO today, because the choice and the ability to download software and use software, as a service from a home environment. And a previous speaker was talking about, your parents using systems at home and video at home today, and the emergence of all of these different opportunities and choice, it must be a nightmare to administrate. So some of the tools that we're looking at are the ability to collaborate better across multiple platforms. That's a key one there. And the service providers do a good job of that today. And I think we're seeing the service providers coming to us now and saying, what else do you have that can help us reach more of our customers in any environment? And I love the comment made earlier about it's not work from home, it's work from anywhere. And I think that's very, very true, because people will have a requirement to work from anywhere. So there's a developing market for the service providers. The niche players are now becoming part of that, whether they're offering a service through the service provider marketplace or they're being acquired. So, we're seeing a lot of opportunity out there in that marketplace, and the emergence of service providers selling more out there to their existing client base.
Mike, from a perspective, I don't know if you can put a Microsoft spin on this as well, of what's a service provider and what's a channel, how do they come together in that space? How do you see that market changing?
I think some of the existing skills are extremely valuable in market. So today, we're going through, well, we always go through a transformation, but I think we're going through a particularly acute transformation at the moment by virtue of what's happened in the sort of last 9 months or so. So as a result of that, it starts that change finds its way back into the procurement cycles of businesses as they move forward. So let's take an example. Okay, in the last 9 months, the vast majority of people in most markets now understand how to conduct a video meeting. All right, be that on Teams, Zoom, etc. So that is similar to the sort of the learning process that happened over, say, 5 or 6 years for SMS, WhatsApp, etc. So now businesses require that capability to be integrated into their communication solutions going forward. But they also need to have the ability to do some of the stuff they were doing before. So the role of the channel is to come in and be able to do those types of integration solutions on a comms level. So mix that hybrid estate up, become the trusted advisor to the business around delivering the comms capability they need. And that's one level. On the other level, it's the northbound integration into the business applications which that business will be using. So we talked a little bit about, say, healthcare earlier on. So if you look at, say, UK primary practice, where you have systems like System 1, I think it is, having video meeting integration into that. All right. There was a business in the UK that rolled out, I think it was 3,500 primary practice video meeting capability in the space of a week. All right. Because they were cloud capable. So it's from the channel's perspective, they can continue in the comms infrastructure piece. I think that there's a huge amount of value to be built there, especially in the Teams world. Okay, so Teams has got a robust set of voice capabilities associated with it, and building that back into existing estate in hybrid type scenarios is a very important skill, and I think that's one of the areas where demand very much outstrips supply. But then if you go northbound into the workflow integration, there's a whole bunch of opportunity there as well for the channel.
That's really interesting. Sonny or Mikhail, any viewpoints on the back of that as well in terms of this changing channel?
Well, I think there will be, let's say, a very interesting piece of service providers. Service providers have been selling subscriptions for ages, right? So that's an important, let's say, specialization they have. And I think the role of service providers changes in the way that they used to build and operate the service And now they need to change more the model that surrounds a cloud service and have the customer ownership and the engagement and customer journey in place. It's all about, I think, how to maintain a simple and stronger relationship while bundling these services to those customers. And it also requires a shift to be able to integrate the collaboration workloads into that line of business application Mike is also referring to, and also across architecture portfolios like IoT and security. And I think that those who understand that's about owning this customer journey will thrive, and those service providers who are not only capturing but also able to create demand will have a strong position in the market.
Yeah, I think that capturing and or creating demand, and I think that also comes down to creating relevancy in this space as well. How do you remain relevant? Is if you're just selling the same thing as everyone else in the market, you've got to think around how can I do that differently. I think that's a key area there. And Sonny, on that point as well, I mean, we've seen Ring Central hoover up the A's, Avaya, Atos, and Alcatel as partners. Where do we see that changing in the future? And are you starting to see differing work patterns coming through from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally our view is that we strongly believe in letting the customer choose their best partner and their best path to the cloud. And I think it's sort of without a shadow of a doubt that the path to the cloud is the right one, and how we can help our customers make it is very important. I think the points just made in terms of building out those integrations and an integrated workflow are imperative, and it's also about building out that integrated ecosystem. So how does your UC stack sit and play with the other cloud applications you've got within your organization? And then that's where many of these businesses and some of the partners that we work with come in and add additional value and come in and work with their customers, because they will then bring in and integrate their version of the Ring Central platform into their existing workflows. And I think that moving forward is where we're going to see a lot of movement, and where we're going to see a lot of development. And over the next few years, I do see a lot of development coming for specifically for Ring Central on our platform with many of our partners, but across a number of the other platforms as well, in order to succeed and to grow. That integrated workforce piece is key.
Great. And do we just moving on? We've got a few minutes left. We've seen quite a few acquisitions at the moment, people building scale across Europe. Do we think that trend's going to continue? Do we see more and more acquisitions taking part? Mike, do you want to take us on a lead from your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think scale is obviously key, and being able to service customers where they are. So, most businesses are international these days, so having strong international footprint is important. So you've seen a significant amount of consolidation around that. And also economics play a part. So you have to be at a certain scale to, I guess, be viable in certain markets as well, where they're highly competitive. I think the other area is degrees of specialization. If you look at what we just talked about earlier on in terms of the services will be applicable to certain market types, then you'll see service providers buying in that skill set. We saw a tranche of that probably a couple of years ago, going after hospitality, for example. But I think going forward, you're going to see service providers looking to buy in skills in certain areas, be that healthcare, government, etc., etc. So, there are specialists out there who exist in those markets, who've got those skills, who've done the API integration, and then sort of gone that little stage further, which is to build a combination of PaaS and CPaaS type offerings as well. So you get things which become more bespoke to certain verticals.
Yeah, I think that bespokeness and building that is a kind of key trend we've seen coming through there. Jeremy, do you see, from a distributor point of view, that coming through, and what challenges do you think that's going to raise if people start building their own solutions? Let's say.
Yeah, I think for us, Tom, we've maintained trying to be a value-added distributor by keeping a lot of services and application developers and pre-sales, post-sales, technical people. You know, we've got I think 30 plus in our business today, helping our customers, and I think we've tried to maintain that bit around speciality so that we can be relevant to the marketplace, and that word has been used a few times today, and I think relevancy is important. You know, Mike said about scale and specialization, but I think it's also about capability. And what we've tried to look at, and I think the acquisitions that people are looking at down in the marketplace, is not only giving them the scale, but making them capable to service their customers' needs. And that's why I think acquisitions will continue to happen. You know, and we look forward to playing a major part in that, because, in fact, I think apart from Mike, we work with everybody else that's on this call today, you know, and supply their product and support their product throughout the European marketplace. And for us, it's trying to keep relevant and not go general and too wide, that you lose that ability to add value out there into the marketplace. Yeah. You know, so we've tried to stick with mainline vendors that are in the marketplace today, helping customers out. You know, and I think the other thing, Dom, that we haven't picked up in, and the previous presenter was talking about it, this ease of use. I've talked about it for a long, long time. You know, all of us are responsible now for ensuring that the channel can get to the enterprise marketplace, the mid marketplace, and even down to the SM marketplace, and provide relevancy for their customers in a room environment in the office as well as at home, right? And what I mean by that is you can walk into any meeting room and have the capability of audio or video or collaboration of content, or all three, and be able to add people in from different environments. And I think, you know, that's where the focus is going in the marketplace.
No, agreed on that. Yeah, really interesting. We're coming right to the end, and we've got 2 minutes left, and I kind of like to do a quick fire round of where do we see the future in terms of the workplace. Sonny, if you want to lead off on that, got a few seconds. Just how do we see that future workplace look like?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I honestly don't know. This last year has been an absolute sort of whirlwind, and to predict what's going to happen next is changing by the day. But I think what we can reasonably see is that the work from anywhere phase is definitely going to go ahead. The increase of video is there to stay. But I think staying agile, staying resilient, and having that focus on research and development is key for any large vendor.
And Mikhail?
Yeah, I think, well, we've talked about empowering those remote workers and enabling safe returns to the office. I think a key point actually is also making IT hum. That's all about streamlining the management experience. I think service providers will have a tough job actually of managing 100 times more offices than before, and keeping the customer also IP secure and keeping the customer workforce productive, while employees move flexibly around those home and office spaces, right? And I think that's a key area we can also help as a vendor to streamline that process as well. Great.
Mike, last thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I think pretty much echoing what the other guys have said. The future workplace is going to be even more distributed than it ever was before, and your technology and solutions will need to accommodate that. It'll be highly cloud focused, so that you can not just work from anywhere, but manage from anywhere as well.
Great. And Jeremy, just to close us off, do you agree with those statements? Anything else to add into there?
I do, and I'll give one word: flexible. To finish, I think that all workplaces are going to have to be flexible. All employees are going to have to be flexible, and IT solutions are going to be able to flex as to where people are working from. So that'll be my closing word: flexibility.
Fantastic. Guys, it's been a great panel. Thank you all so much for joining us, and looking forward to hearing from others speaking today on on some of these topics, going into a bit more depth. But I'd like to say thank you to all. I'm sure the audience has had a fascinating insight into what we've been talking about. And with that, we'll be stopping. If you hold for 2 minutes to our audience, we'll be back online with Cisco taking us through their vision for the future as well. So thank you very much, and see you soon.
Done.
Thank you.
Cheers, Don.